What is biophysics? You actually have a degree from Cal in biophysics.
Yeah, it's actually the study of physical science applied to biological phenomena. So an example would be MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, which is you're actually studying, the physical, or I'm sorry, you're studying the
physics of organic
anatomical
tissues and that sort of
right,
thing.
but you're using physical sciences to do it.
Now, why would you take that?
I've just always loved science. I mean, I was a sort of a geek since I was a little kid. And
Yeah, but did you want to become a doctor or a medical researcher?
I was considering going into med school, going into medicine. But biophysics was appealing because it was actually the broadest array of sciences I could take. It allowed me to take everything from computer science to physics to anatomy to...
oh, great. 4 years of taking courses with people who are majoring in those different fields, right? So you're always behind.
I wouldn't say it was an easy major, but
Lab every day of the week?
I loved it, though.
Oh, good. So you went home every night after dark because it's smelling like formaldehyde?
Yeah, I wasn't in the sorority scene. I wasn't a big socializer in college. I actually hit the books, but
well, it was 1984. What was Cal like in '84?
Well,
you were a hometown girl.
25,000 people. Yeah, I think it's a lot bigger these days. But yeah, I grew up in Berkeley. I always intended to go to Cal. I always kind of assumed that I would.
It must have loomed over your whole life.
Yeah.
When you're living in Berkeley.
Yeah.
It's right up on top of the hill there.
Yeah, on our street, there were lots of kids. Parents were professors, and I actually went up to the Lawrence Hall of Science, which is connected with the university when I was a little kid, and that's when I got really interested and excited about
no
science.
desire to get out of town? I mean, most people go off to college.
Yeah, they do. It's funny. I didn't even think about applying to other colleges. I only applied to Cal, and I think it's just that it was so much a part of the community and so much a part of, what I just assumed.
So were you actually a day student? Did you live at home and then?
I lived at home for much of the time that I went to Cal. Yeah, because we lived pretty close to the university, and that, in retrospect, it probably would have been a good idea to completely uproot myself and go somewhere else.
Well, you did right after that.
Yes, I went up to University of Washington in Seattle for a year after I graduated from Cal.
But you didn't stay. I've always been curious. You go up to the University of Washington in an area that will eventually be your career.
Yeah.
But you didn't stick around and pick up advanced degrees or anything.
Yeah, the reason I went up to UW was that I wanted to get more computer science under my belt, because at that point, by '84, I had decided that computer science is really where I wanted to focus.
So what was the turning point?
It was when I first took my computer science. I took my first computer science class in Cal.
Yeah.
At Cal when I was a junior.
It's like a little light went on, a little epiphany, and you said, "This is what I want to do."
I loved it. It was, I think, among other things, it's the fact that you have such utter control when you're creating a program.
Yeah.
You really are the master of your universe.
And no dead animals laying around on tables.
That's true.
So are you like the classic immigrant daughter? I mean, first generation. We're here in America. We want you to go to the best schools. You're going to get straight A's and go all the way.
I think so, actually, because
there's a great quote from you. You didn't come home from school and turn on the TV and open a bag of Cheetos, which is actually a pretty precise description of my upbringing. So,
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that way at your house?
Not at all. No. I mean, first of all, basically TV was kind of verboten.
Yeah.
And studying was absolutely expected. Straight A's were expected. Very, very high expectations from both parents, in particular my dad.
Did you get straight A's?
I did.
Yeah.
Actually.
So where did his love of education come that he inculcated you with?
I think it was a desire to have, this generation of the family be the first to attend university and realize the American dream, because...
It's kind of unusual for a daughter.
Yes.
Especially an immigrant family, the daughter, that's usually the son is the one who gets focused on.
That's true, yeah. And I'm actually very grateful to my parents for encouraging me, and really not even encouraging me, but expecting me to excel. And sciences, in particular science and engineering, was highly respected.
There's an awful lot of little girls, especially parents who have just come to the United States, who see you take piano and you take dance, and that's sort of your ticket into, the middle class, and but you still do it. I mean, you're the only little girl I know who took ballet who's still dancing.
Yeah, I love it. It's part of who I am. I started in 7th grade. I had a best friend who did it very seriously and kept encouraging me to try it. And I thought it was for sissies, and you'd have to wear pink tutus and stuff.
So you're like a real tomboy.
Yeah.
Down at the machine shop with the overalls on.
Riding my bike every day and running track and stuff. But once I tried dance, I just loved it because it was so challenging athletically. But it was everything. It was, artistic expression. It was music. It was rhythm. It was flexibility. It was
and
an
now
endless
stress
challenge.
Reduction, I bet, too.
Yeah, it is a wonderful balance to work because I can just completely lose myself. I have to focus on the combination that I'm learning and the way that I'm interpreting the music, and I have to remember the choreography, and there's just a lot to it. It's not like being on the Stairmaster and kind of cranking away.
So you're up in Washington. You're in with all these computer jockeys. Did you ever feel out of place in this crowd? I mean, you obviously wouldn't be out of place in a room full of men because you're hanging down to the machine shop. But there is a subtle sexism, you know that, in the computer world. At least there is in computer labs, and at least there was in the mid-1980s. How did you deal with that?
I didn't even notice it. If it was there, I didn't notice it because I was so focused. I was
You were just
singularly
writing code.
focused on writing code, right, and getting as much as I possibly could out of the time that I was there.
Did you allot yourself like a year and say that's
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Oh, really? So
yeah.
you set out, I'm going to spend a year
Yep,
here and then get out
That
of here.
was it, and I took nothing but computer science classes, so it wasn't like I had a really easy workload. I
You were
really,
like a serious grind, weren't
I
you?
was. That wasn't much fun.
So you finish, and what do you do then? You said, I'm going to do
Then
a job now?
I came down to the Valley in 1985, beginning of '85, and I
Came
couldn't-
home to the Bay Area.
Yeah, and I was trying to decide really what I wanted to do, and I wasn't even sure, frankly, that I would be able to sit still 8 hours a day for a regular desk job. I'd never done that before, and I'm a very active person, so I decided to give myself a year, basically, and give it a shot. I was actually debating whether I should become a bicycle messenger or, because I found that idea very appealing, but
You'd
this
still
job
be a
offer
bicycle
came
messenger if
through.
you'd done that.
I probably would, but a job offer came through from a company called IntelliCorp, which was artificial intelligence software.
Oh, it's right down your alley. It goes with the biophysics, doesn't it?
Biophysics, right.
Okay, so AI company,
Yeah.
also known as the kiss of death. They all died.
It was very hot in 1985, though. It was the
Until
height.
about 1986.
That's right.
Okay, so what'd you do at this AI company?
It was actually a company that developed expert system software, so
Okay.
software that helps computers think or act like people in the way that they do reasoning.
The Turing test.
That's right.
Okay.
And I was a technical support engineer, so I started out by answering the phones and helping people figure out how to use this, $75,000 piece of software that they.
So you're one of those people at the other end of the line that phone rings 47 times, then you pick up, and then you had to listen to people scream at you for all the things wrong?
Yeah, it was sort of a unique technical support experience, though, because it's not like you just flip to the manual and say, okay, press,
Yeah.
the orange button
These
on
were
the
big
keyboard.
corporate clients, right?
Yeah, and this was a very complex system. It was a very elaborate expert system, and the company was full of PhDs who designed a very complicated rule system, and
you're down the
you had
boiler
to
room.
understand the nuances of this thing.
And you probably understood it better than some of them did, right? Because you were having to answer all the questions and what went wrong.
I don't know about that. It was a company of incredibly bright people. It was like being back at the university, but among the cream of the student.
Well, that's a very interesting
crop.
lesson. Did you come out of that realizing that you could have a company full of really, really smart people and it still wouldn't make it?
Actually, I did learn some lessons there because I realized that great technology and brilliant people isn't enough. You need a real business application, and
Right.
reality needs to be tied into all of this fabulous technology. And that was, a lesson that certainly wasn't brought home until the company started having trouble, and it became clear that the market wasn't quite there, and that 2 and 2 wasn't adding up when it came to companies' abilities to actually use this technology.
Was that the beginning
in
of
the
your
real world.
crossing over from the tech side to the business side?
I wanted to be part of something larger, and Sun Microsystems was a company on the move, and the transition for me was they were starting an AI program at Sun, and this was running artificial intelligence programs on really cheap computers, at least compared to the expensive AI machines. They
So
were
this is
cheap.
like 80,
Beginning of '89
89.
at this point, and
so Sun's
basically,
going to be a pretty big company by this point.
yeah, about 8,000 people or so. So I started.
Big company.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
big. It was big, and I ran their support program for AI. But realized that it just wasn't challenging. I didn't feel like, it was just too easy. I didn't feel like I was being stretched or tested. And then I found out about a job opening, which was to be a product manager of C++, which was a brand new programming language. And this was when object-oriented programming was very hot and very exciting. And the idea of being a product manager was really appealing to me because
Now, you go on a
it was-
tear during this period.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to get stretched. You stretched.
Yeah,
6 years, 7 years?
I was at Sun for 7 years, yeah.
And by the time, by about 93, 94, the world starts noticing you because you're like a shooting star inside of a shooting star company.
Yeah, what happened was, the first few years I was at Sun, I was the product manager for C++ and other object-oriented technologies, and I loved being a product manager because it was kind of almost like running your own company in a sense. You had total responsibility for what this product would be, down to the very minute technical features,
So that was your first
to the
real taste of
branding,
entrepreneurship.
packaging, exactly.
Okay.
And I just loved it. It was incredibly challenging. I mean, it was the kind of job where people burned out, and in fact, I was warned, you're probably not going to last in this job more than a year, because most people don't, because it's just very demanding. You don't have people reporting to you, but you have total responsibility for
Did
how
you
the
know you were an
product is done.
entrepreneur?
I always had deep down a desire to be an entrepreneur, to have my own business, and I didn't know what it would be or when it would be, but I knew it would, at a certain point, it would become clear to me.
Did you ever run a business as a kid?
Other than just lemonade stands,
Lemonade stands,
and
the usual
standard
stuff. Okay.
No, but
I mean, I'm curious. I notice historically, men seem to become entrepreneurs earlier than women. Men seem to know it from the time they're 8 or 9 years old, and they launch off when they're about 28 or 29.
Yeah.
Women, at least the women I've interviewed, a lot of them don't know they're entrepreneurs and discover they are.
Yeah.
And they usually launch their entrepreneurial career in their mid to late 30s.
Really?
Yeah, there seems to be a 10-year
Guess I
difference.
follow that pattern.
And it might be a cultural influence. You're just not supposed to do this. Women
Yeah.
don't do this kind of stuff.
For me, it was again, it was a deep down desire to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't want to force it. I knew that if it was meant to be, it would become clear at some point when
And when
that
you say
was.
to be an entrepreneur,
To have my
was the
own business.
motive to create your own company? Was it to be independent?
It was to be independent.
It'd be independent.
It was to run my own show. It was to create something.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the mid-90s, you're a star at Sun. There's a pathway ahead of you. You could still be at Sun right now. You know, you obviously wouldn't be CEO because there's a guy there who's got that job forever. But you'd be a senior vice president right now. You'd be COO right now. You'd have a very distinguished position in a very, very large corporation. Why would you walk away from that?
Well, what happened was we introduced Java to the world in 1995, in the spring of 95, and this was a last-ditch effort, actually, to get it out there before it got flushed or canceled, or we almost didn't make it.
Yeah,
So
it was like a guerrilla operation,
yeah,
wasn't
it was throw it over the wall and hope to God Sun lets us put it out there on the net and source code form and hope that people get it, that they understand what the potential of this technology.
So were you like frustrated with the bureaucracy at this point?
It-
When they were going to kill your product?
You know, it's always difficult to introduce a new technology to the world, in particular one that you're trying to make ubiquitous. It's just there's so many hurdles you have to get over. And the path wasn't clear. In retrospect, of course, it seems crystal clear. Of course, the obvious thing would be to put it out on the internet in source code form. But at that time, it wasn't obvious, and Sun had poured tens of millions of dollars into investment in this technology. So this was really kind of last chance. You know, if we don't do this, then this Java stuff will probably never go anywhere. So,
Yeah.
and we did have to fight some internal battles. Other groups that had competing programming languages. All the internal stuff that goes on at a big company. So yes, it was frustrating.
so what was it like
but
for you?
We persevered.
I mean, you knew if they had squashed Java, your career would hit a wall too. So, I mean, the combination of what you're working on and your own
I
life are
wasn't
mixed
thinking
up
about
together.
my career so much as I was just determined to do anything that I could. I mean, kill myself trying to do my part to get this technology out to the world because I knew how important it was from a pure technology standpoint, that this was great technology and the world needed it. And the people that were remaining on the team were really driven by that passion.
But there's knives in every office as you go down the hall trying
It's
to
not simple.
stop you.
It's not simple. So we put it out there on the net in March of 95. We gave our first newspaper interview, and the thing hit like boom. Yeah, it just took off, and it completely blew us away. We had no idea. I mean, I remember the day after I gave that interview to this reporter from the San Jose Mercury News, I flipped to the business section to see if there was a little item about it. It wasn't in there, and I was just really disappointed. I guess he didn't get it. And then I flipped over to the front page of the paper, and it was above the fold. It was the headline of the paper that day: "Why Sun Thinks Hot Java Will Give You a Lift." And he got it, clearly. And the phone started ringing that day. It was the 23rd of March, 95, and it never stopped. And my life really changed.
Let's go back to this part about how you were willing to kill yourself to make this thing work. Where did that come from?
I think it's just part of my makeup. I think I'm just extremely driven, and I tend to,
Were you
once I
born
get my
that way?
teeth in something,
Did
I
you
just
inherit
don't
it?
give up. It's probably a combination of both. I mean, my parents are certainly that way. They're very, very much self-sufficient and extremely driven and very results-oriented. And it's not so much for the achievement or the degree or the notoriety, it's for getting a job done and being proud of that, creating something and seeing it to the end, seeing it through.
You polish that piece of metal after you've run it through the lathe.
Right.
You have to do it all. You
That's
finish
right.
the process.
That's right. That's right. You give it your all.
Okay, so let's talk about notoriety, because all of a sudden you become famous really fast.
Yeah.
You're starting to get autographs. People are asking you for autographs at trade shows. You start getting these lines in magazines, the sex symbol of Silicon Valley. Even one of your friends, Tom Dolby, the Madonna of Silicon Valley. Were you stunned when you saw this in the magazine? Like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Well, first of all, I think his quote was taken out of context. He told me about that later. But yes, I mean, obviously there was this fascination with the oddity of having a young, a young woman evangelizing a very, very technical, product, and it was just unusual, and the media picked up on that. And anytime there's something that's different, that instantly gets blown out of proportion, and it takes on this whole new meaning. And I thought it was very silly, frankly. I thought it was just very silly and distracting.
Did you worry about the problem of a lot of executives of new public companies that you've got your employees will get distracted? First of all, they got all these options. Second of all, they're sitting there every morning with the NASDAQ numbers scrolling on their screens all day long and calculating their wealth, every 5 minutes. How'd you deal with that?
I was concerned about that because I had other CEOs of companies telling me that that's the classic syndrome. And so for the almost year prior, good 6-8 months prior to the event itself, I would talk to the company about that. I hold monthly, what I call all-hands meetings, the whole company gathers, and that's something we talked about. And I would talk also one-on-one with people about it and really try to drive home that what we're doing here, this is just an event in time, and this is not the end. This is really the beginning of building a great company.
You're still very young, but you're old compared to all those .com startups out there. Why not just do what's going on out there? Just take Marimba out a little bit longer and sell it off. Wouldn't that be the smart thing?
Well, I don't think you build a successful company no matter what if you have the intention of selling it off. I mean, that's just my philosophy is no matter what you ultimately do, you have to have your sights set out there. You have to set them high. And you have to be looking out in the future, because then you build a company that is attractive, whether it's to the public market or to a potential acquirer.
But you sound like you're back in the machine shop. Why do you want a company to last? Aren't companies ephemeral now? I mean, I know you have strong feelings about this.
Yeah. Again, I think the challenge and the really exciting part of all of this is building a real company. And I get turned off by the mentality that I think is increasing in the Valley, which is cash out. Start a company, and as you're starting it, what's the exit strategy is the most important thing you're deciding. I find that to be very sad, because what made this Valley great, this industry great, was people like Hewlett and Packard and Andy Grove and Scott McNealy and others who were really focused on building a great company for the challenge of doing that and for the thrill of creating something solid. And
so you want to be known eventually as the venerable CEO of Marimba?
I worry about the Valley and the industry losing what made it great, the emphasis on innovation and creating something and building a success over the long term, and that doesn't happen overnight. And I think there's almost a disease that's starting to creep into the Valley, to the industry today.
Well, let me play devil's advocate. Let's say I'm the head of a new little startup, and we just got $8 million from, I don't know, Mayfield Fund, and we're about to go public, and the long-term goal is there is no long-term goal. We're going to sell this place out. And I say to you, Kim, you've been around this Valley now for a long time. Most companies don't last. Why not accept the inevitable, that this is an era of virtual corporations and quick turnover and ephemeral startups that last days, weeks, months, and then are replaced by something else. You're an anachronism. You're trying to build HP in an era, and it's not 1939 anymore.
Well, I guess I prefer being an anachronism then. It's just what drives me, and I don't want to cast aspersions on people who create a great product and then sell their company, because there's nothing wrong with selling your company. And as you're saying, that's really, it happens more often than not. It's very rare that you see an Intel or a Cisco or a Sun and founders that go all the way with the company and build it into literally $1 billion in revenues, not market cap. But I think that I just love a challenge, and that's what turns me on. And I think it's important for young entrepreneurs in this Valley to still have that as something that is to be aspired to, that has value. Because there is today too much, I think, emphasis on cashing out and comparing, the fact that you got 50 million and someone else got 100 million and you feel like a failure. I mean, there really are young people today who are 25 who are only worth 20 million, who think they're just an utter failure, and they're depressed about it, and it's just sick. And it's, I think there's.
What do you say to them?
This is a
what do you say to them? You are a role model. You're especially a role model to a generation of women sitting in computer labs right now writing code. What do you say to them? What would you say to yourself if you could go back and see the little girl in the machine shop about a life as an entrepreneur and a life in technology?
I would say that one of life's greatest joys is working together with a team and creating something, and all being committed to that and doing that over a series of months and years. It doesn't happen overnight if you're creating something real. That is one of the great joys of not only this industry but life, and that if you get a shot at doing that, you should give it your all. And that means really ultimately building a real company, not going for the money, not cashing out, but building something real. I think people forget the fact that this is a life experience. This is part of life. This is not just about making money. In fact, I know many entrepreneurs who do sell out or realize a windfall, and then instead of feeling happy or fulfilled, they're depressed because they realize that wasn't really what they wanted after all. I mean, it's nice to have a fancy car. They go on to start another one, and they're serial entrepreneurs, because they realize that life is short, and it's interactions with other people. It's testing yourself. It's challenging yourself. It's creating. It's being in the swim of things. That's what makes life fun.